So my name's Ryan Chetiyawardana, but I often use the title of Mr Lyan. It's been something that's been part of I suppose, the journey of what we've been doing since we started our own business 10 years ago. And it's really been the heart of, I suppose, our philosophy of what we wanted to bring to the world of food and drink. And I've been working in kind of the hospitality side, food, drink, cocktails for over 20 years now. And I originally started kind of working in kitchens, got very excited by the kind of world of flavor and food. And really, to me, that was about socializing. It was about kind of understanding products, exciting people, and trying to find a way to kind of bring people together through that as a medium. But I quickly got much more excited by the drink side. And that was partly to do with the kind of range of flavors I could work with, the different occasions at which people came through a bar compared to a restaurant. But it was really about talking to people. That was the thing I loved about creating for kind of my friends and family when I was cooking at home. So by being in a bar, I was able to kind of have that much more of a direct dialogue and understand what people's moods were, their palates, what they were excited for. And, that felt really magical to me. The idea that you're understanding people in an individual sense and you're really just trying to make them happy. That to me was kind of like my dream job. It was a way for me to balance my interest in kind of science and art. Throughout all my studies, I kind of worked in lots of different venues where I was pulling different sides of these perspectives, everything from the way that people are in a nightclub compared to how they behave in fine dining situations or in a tiny little cocktail bar or in a hotel bar. All of these different things felt really exciting to me. And, that's something that I tried to just learn from as I kind of progressed through the industry. Until about 10 years ago when we started the Mr Lyan kind of family of projects. And it's actually something I started with my sisters. And as we kind of blossomed and were able to start to look at different spaces, we've moved from kind of a little cocktail bar that we originally had in East London through to the 4 bars we have now. So we have Lioness, and we're here in Seed Library in London, alongside Silver Lion in Washington, DC, and Super Lion over in Amsterdam, as well as kind of all of the ways in which we can try and engage people through food and drink, through the work we do in Mr Lyan Studio, the books we have, the masterclass series, all of these ways in which I can hopefully translate how much I think cocktails are magic, and the world of drink is a really exciting kind of place to be able to work in. So the Mr Lyan name came really from childhood, but the application of it was really my sister Natasha's kind of thinking. We were looking at all the various projects. We always knew that we wanted to do something that was multifaceted, got to touch different industries, could work in different locations, and really kind of got tied together by a bit of a red thread. And the problem was, when you have a name as long as Schwarzenegger, people kind of get put off by it. And so it ended up just being Ryan or Ryan C, or no way of really kind of making it feel like a collection of ideas, of projects, of different philosophies. So by being able to kind of hark back as a family project into something that was, based on childhood. And it really came from friends when we were tiny, just kind of rhyming Ryan and Lion. And there's some fun little drawings that we have where I'm kind of playing around with my name. And it really kind of came from this like lovely, very tongue-in-cheek, playful way of misspelling my name to be able to kind of come up with a bit of I suppose, a central brand that could link together all of the different projects that we were doing. So the idea of sustainability was really, I suppose it was quite integral to the way that I approach life. We came from, 2 Buddhist parents. We kind of grew up with the idea that we don't waste things. There wasn't lots of money to go around. So you were kind of creative on how you applied your thinking to stuff. You didn't just kind of use the heart of something and throw the rest away. It was, not in kind of Sri Lankan culture. It wasn't in my parents' kind of outlook of things. And so that was ingrained within us when we were very, very young. But I suppose as a biologist as well, there was just something about it that just felt so contradictory to me. There was nothing in it that made sense from the way that we should be approaching our systems, and, even looking at the world of luxury and kind of fine things like we were doing in the food and drink world. It just seemed strange to me that we would just accept that there was going to be this kind of very ostentatious kind of approach to stuff where it's kind of luxury equals excess and waste. So it was really quite a founding pillar of what we want to do in the company. I think, the thing that we use as our kind of guiding principle is good things. How do we do good? How do we work with good? How do we promote good? And, it's a very, stripped back idea, but it was something that helped us look at every touch point that we could control. And it's evolved over the years, from the first point of White Lion, where we didn't really have much waste. even down to the fact that we couldn't get a commercial, waste management contract because we didn't have any waste to go down that route. So we looked at it from a very kind of material sense in the early days because, that was part of the industry. And, that was inherent to the kind of very traditional ways of kind of building up cocktails. So we wanted to demonstrate that there was an alternative method of doing that. And that didn't need to include waste or the output of some of these ingredients in a way that was, resulting in many of them ending up in the bin. And, since those days, it's evolved a lot. We've tried to look at other forms of kind of waste. Is it, energy? Is it water? Is it the human side of things? Is there ways in which we can kind of educate and find different kind of branches that kind of affect bigger change? And through collaborations, through working with some very, very brilliant people, we've, been able to kind of collaborate with everybody from Douglas McMaster, who had the world's first zero waste restaurant, through to, food boards and kind of UN Food Council, discussions that are trying to look at ways in which we can address this both as an industry but really as a society to try and understand ways in which we can be more conscientious about the way that we navigate the world and not have to sacrifice all of the delicious, wonderful things that we have as part of the world of food and drink. So it remains a really important topic, but I think the focus of the output has shifted as we've kind of progressed through the years. But it's still something that we really love putting a lot of work into the education, the discussion side of things to make sure that it remains a topic at the front of people's minds. So innovation to me is, well, it's central to the whole Mr Lyan brand. It's at the heart of everything that we do. And to me, it's about problem solving. It's about ways in which we can look at something in a slightly different manner. I think the thing that we task the team with a lot is the idea of lateral thinking. How do we look at the things that are very established? How do we look at the rules and what that tends to kind of direct you to and think about what else it could create? And it's one of my favorite things that we've been able to do as a company is set this up as a process. So by putting innovation at the heart of what we do and putting people at the heart of what we do, we've been able to really find a mechanism of getting everybody involved in the creative process. And it's led us to be able to kind of create new techniques, new ways of working, use novel ingredients, find new ways of creating flavor that we haven't been able to kind of find elsewhere in the world. And that to me is something I'm immensely proud of. And, I always stand by the idea of going, you innovate or die. And that doesn't mean that, particularly in something like, the food and drink world is an ancient industry. There is so much incredible history there. There's amazing stories to be able to kind of hark back to. But that doesn't mean you don't continue to evolve as the world evolves around you. Even with those things, it's not about throwing away all of that history and tradition. It's about the fact that anything that kind of stands the test of time continues to evolve. So how can we look at our industry? How do we look at the way that we work and find new ways of creating? And that comes down to the kind of style of work that we do, where we look to kind of find inspiration. It's down to the collaborations that we kind of cause, but it's really to do with the inherent way that we work as a team. And this is something that it's the thing I wish people would copy more in terms of our kind of process, is this idea of going, well, we have such brilliant problem solvers within the kind of food and drink world. You have some of the most creative minds in the world. And we've got such a diverse background. They've got different interests, different kind of perspectives. They come from different backgrounds. How do we find a way of empowering that? And we do that through innovation. We get them to be able to seek out different points of, a starting point for a cocktail doesn't need to be the flavors. It doesn't need to be, this and this go together to be able to create something interesting. It can come from a much wider set of kind of starting points. And that means that you don't need to be hugely well versed in the idea of kind of cocktail creation or flavor, any of those things. You can just be curious about the world. And that's the thing that we seek out in our team members, is this desire to look for something or pay attention to a detail or be curious about how something is kind of happening in the world, and to use that as a jumping off point to create our cocktails. And that means that we have an endless supply of inspiration to look at. We also get to be able to put our team members at the heart of everything. They get ownership over how we create. And it means that we can continue to design new things. We can look at new techniques, new flavors, and the wonderful world of cocktails remains incredibly wide open for us as a result of that. So Seed Library is our latest bar. We're very much based in the heart of East London, and that was the real kind of inspiration behind the bar. We wanted something that fit this community. Obviously, we're super proud of the other bars that are currently in the family, things that we've created in the past. And with Seed Library, we wanted something that I suppose actually took us out of our comfort zone a little bit. We wanted to look at the factors that we had ingrained into ourselves, the style of cocktails that we make, the education and the inspiration about where our ingredients come from, what styles of ingredient we can use, but also, the flavors and the different kind of touch points of the world that surrounded us. We wanted something that felt very warm, very organic, and actually not as kind of controlled and polished as we've done things in the past. Every time that we've created something, it's always been about how do we put our version of this forward and be very proud of that. Not saying it's the best or anything like that. It's just, it would be our version. And with Seed Library, we tried to kind of buck this idea of controlling everything down to the nth degree. Particularly with White Lion, everything was hyper kind of like detail orientated in the way that we controlled every facet, from the dilution, the minerality, the pH, the flavors, all of those things up. Whereas with Seed Library, we wanted to kind of embrace the fuzziness of nature, the fact that nature varied, it had these wonderful idiosyncrasies to it, or when you had somebody making a product, you could feel their fingerprint on it. The fact that they had kind of chosen to kind of represent what they loved about a particular category or a product itself. And so we've kind of lent into that. It's in the materials. It's a very warm space. It's right in the bustling heart of kind of Shoreditch, but it's a bit of a kind of tranquil kind of sanctuary from some of that noise. And everything is there to kind of feel kind of welcoming, soft, and relaxed. The lighting, the way that we draw you into your own space, and of course, the way the team host and bring it to life. We have an incredible sound system. It's all kind of vinyl based. It's looking at music from, like we do with our ingredients, it's looking at places around the world or different knowledge sets that maybe won't get highlighted in kind of like the mainstream or the kind of very established categories. So we're trying to look to the wider world for different sources of inspiration, and different knowledge sets and communities which fall outside that very kind of established trope, to be able to kind of excite us to explore new worlds. The new menu at Seed Library just dropped, and I think the team are doing some really, really wonderful things. I think one of my favorites that have come from the menu is a drink called the Pink Panther. And it's just this, almost like the namesake. It kind of toes the line, beautiful color to it as well, really playful. But it's just got these kind of, it's like layers of tongue-in-cheek and sophistication in the same breath. It does everything it says on the tin in a really true way. And it's it drinks in a really easy way, but there's just these layers of complexity to it. And we do it, like the heart of the ingredient is it's almost an aged cup of tea, which sounds really mad. But it's, the idea of taking the blackening process and how you can convert flavors through this incredible cascade of very slow reactions, applying that to something as everyday as a cup of tea, and then using that as a layering element of this kind of really light style sour, means that you've got something that drinks bright, fresh like a Clover Club, but has this incredible length and kind of sophistication to it. Alongside things like our coriander seed gimlet and our koji hard shake, which are, I suppose, classics of the bar now, I think that's one of the ones to come and try off the new menu. I mean, my favorite thing about the bars is that they're all unique. They have different locations, different geographies, different focus. And they also address things in a different manner. But the joy is they have this little red thread running through them. There is a style of not only our creativity, but I suppose the playfulness that we like to inject into our cocktails that kind of remains the same. But because they have different kind of focal points, they look at things from a different perspective. It's really lovely to be able to jump between each one and kind of like really experience how the team are kind of taking that idea along their own little path. And it's wonderful for, particularly Alex and I, who are working across all of these different projects, to be able to, I suppose, give little bits of inspiration or steer or connect dots for them to a different source of kind of research, or a different partner that they can collaborate with, or different ways in which we can encourage them to kind of continue down in a way that represents their bar, represents their platform, but really gives them the chance to be able to express what excites them about this particular kind of concept, nugget, or idea. So it's actually very easy to kind of keep those remaining fresh, because They're all exploring new territories. They're looking at things in their own unique way. And I feel very fortunate to be able to kind of jump between them. And, each time I dive into a creative session with the team, I walk out energized, inspired, and, just feeling super electric from the fact that they're creating so much brilliance. And, it's coming from their own creativity. It's coming from this system that is there to nurture themselves and, their own talents to be able to kind of take ownership and make it their own. So it's something that I'm very glad that we have the kind of breadth of projects that we do. I think that's very much within my character, and it's what excites me about the world, is to not have things feel monotonous and not have things that feel like they've been cookie cutted out. They all have their own identity. They all have their own focus, and it means that there's this incredible diversity of ideas that are coming out from within the company. Collaboration is one of my favorite ways of creating. I think this comes from my kind of art college days. I was always more excited by the idea of what I always talk to the team about is the Venn diagram. You have two different sets of expertise or perspective, and the point at which it crosses over in the middle, where it's unique to what either party would have done by themselves, to me is some of the most exciting things. And we've done it with everything from living organisms and going, well, actually there's something really beautiful about not controlling all those flavors. That we have something that is this other partner in play, and it's helping kind of create something that we couldn't have done before. And actually part of the beauty of it is the unknown. It's the fact that you're not quite sure what's going to happen. You can set up all the conditions to be right, but ultimately you've got something else kind of playing in the mix, and it creates something different. And obviously we love doing that with kind of real people as well, like ways in which we can kind of collaborate with people, with brands, with different societies and communities of things as well. And I think there's been some very long-term partners. Dr. Ariel Johnson and Dr. Johnny Drain, they were food scientists who were very, very old friends. Johnny and I actually went to school together. And I met Ariel when I was a very young bartender, just getting curious about ways in which I could fold some of my science background into the world of cocktails. And what was beautiful about working with them was not only are they kind of, incredible repositories of like brilliant knowledge, they're so willing to share, and they're so willing to I suppose, like help us get excited by something. They'll teach us about something, and that'll spark us to look at it slightly differently. And ideally, we're then coming up with something that they feel excited by, rather than they're just teaching us something. And that's where there's been some of my favorite collaborations in the past. Working with food scientists like them, we've worked with Catherine Temple Lewis is works with everything from neuroscience to kind of material science, and she's been brilliant. Dr. Rachel Dutton in a similar way. As well as kind of people in very disparate fields. We don't need to work within the kind of confines of food and drink. If we get the opportunity to work with a musician or an architect or somebody who's looking at tech in a very different way, it's an opportunity for us to create something different, and that's at the heart of what we do. Of course, there are places like in the restaurant world. We were very fortunate recently with Lioness to collaborate with Restaurant Noma or 11 Madison Park. Restaurants are really at the top of their game, and working with the Noma projects products to be able to kind of, I suppose, display something different for them that they would use in the culinary sense. But it's amazing for us to kind of learn from, I suppose, a very adjacent industry. But there's something wonderful also about the kind of spirits world. Obviously this is at the heart of what we do. We've been able to do some wonderful collaborations, either things that are little picks where, this was a collaboration we did with Berry Brothers and Rudd. Beautiful, very, very kind of, the oldest spirits and wine merchants in the world. And, being able to work with a company that was very ancient, but still put kind of innovation at their heart. And this was a subject very close to us, which was, well, to both of us, which was the idea of sustainability. So working with different distilling partners around the world, highlighting incredible projects, people that are doing really amazing things. And I got to work with Johnny McMillan on kind of doing a couple of different picks of 10 different distilleries that are not only doing incredible, progressive, sustainable work, but they're putting some of the most delicious liquids out there in the world. Or similarly, I worked with a dear friend, as aforementioned, Douglas McMaster from Silo in London, where we went across to Maker's Mark in Kentucky, and we got to understand their process, their kind of passion about their center place. How much they're doing to be able to preserve the landscape that surrounds the distillery and all of the things that are crucial to be able to influence a whiskey. And some of those are intangible. You obviously know about the kind of wood and the barley and the water that they use, but how much they're doing on things like the air quality, the biodiversity of their surrounding distillery is really inspiring. And so in this idea of kind of looking at a sense of place, we're very fortunate to collaborate with them on a forthcoming, this is brand new, it's not actually released yet. You can see the team quite like it, which is lovely though, which is a product that celebrates London, which is, a city that remains an incredible inspiration, I know, to Doug and I, but it's obviously somewhere we call home. So it was wonderful to be able to take an American whiskey and all of the DNA that is integral to Maker's Mark, but go, how do we represent where we're from, our sense of place? And so doing some work on different ways of treating the woods, expressing different facets of the whiskey at its heart, to have something that tastes like London, which is a wonderful thing to be able to do. This isn't actually our collaboration, but we got to work with Empirical on their first ever collaboration that they did. It was one of the parts of the Lioness menu when we first launched. So working with people that are just doing innovative work, through to things like Firefield, which is a wonderful expression that we got to work with Louise and the JJ Corrie team to kind of co-create, which is, again, it's all the things that we love. It's talking about people, it's talking about great ingredients, it's talking about a sense of place, and really the culture of Irish whiskey, trying to represent something that's been very, very historical in a modern sense. So there's a breadth of ways in which we really like to kind of explore the idea of creativity. It's it becomes more exciting when we get to do it through collaboration. It ends up giving us such a kind of wide range of different pockets to be able to explore, and it ultimately gives us some of our most exciting work. I mean, there's been huge amounts of things that have been very, very, very difficult, and I think there's a wonder to the world of food and drink, but it's one of the toughest industries out there. It's very, very tight from a margin point of view. There's not very much kind of like support, or despite the fact that it's our biggest manufacturing in this country, it's giving very little kudos from a governmental point of view or from a policy point of view. So there's always been struggles, and there's been difficulties with the business point of view, and being a family business, trying to work out how to cobble this together. There was so much that we learnt as we were going along, and I'm so thankful for Ian and Alex, and obviously Karen, Natasha, my cousins, who were able to kind of really help cement in that business, make it their own, but also our teams. It just wouldn't have happened without them, and I'm so glad that we've had kind of a journey for a lot of those people. James has been with us 10 years now. It's incredible to see everybody being able to put their stamp on the company and kind of help us get through very, very difficult times. And there's been a lot of learnings in amongst that. There's been, I think I don't take for granted the fact that we have a lot of people's livelihoods on the line as a result of the decisions we make. And I remember there was a real point that highlighted this quite acutely to me when we told the team that we were going to shut down Lion and open Lioness. That was something that had been very ingrained in my head. I'd been thinking about it for a number of, years almost, where we were looking at the changes that happened, both with White Lion and with Dandelion, what happened in the industry, why it made sense. And, I'd come very much to terms with that. It was a logical decision for me. But when we went and told the team, I said it almost flippantly. And it was very, it became very apparent that that's not fair. I had been, this is people's, it's as much theirs as it is anybody else's. They've been putting their kind of pride and their passion into this project, and then it sounds like we're just pulling the rug out from underneath them. I should have told them they still have a job. That should have been the first thing I led with. But people cried, and it was something that I really realized at that point that we've been doing so much of this project because we've been so excited by it. That's been what's driven our kind of commitment to this industry, is because we love it. And, we want to be able to remain excited. And so we run at 1 million miles an hour. But you also have to kind of not only slow down at points and realize what it means to other people, but, I don't think we've been very good at kind of smelling the roses either, and kind of reflecting on where there has been good success. It's always been about kind of moving forwards. And, those moments where you kind of get to pause and reflect, and sometimes it's abruptly because you've been insensitive, and I've done something like I've just bowled into a meeting and told them that we're going to close a bar, through to, when we did our decade party where, a lot of the team stood up and spoke, and they talked about like moments within that journey that had been kind of important to them. And, that was, just really wonderful to hear. And it kind of allows you to kind of think on those difficult points in a very different way. So lots of tough moments, lots to learn. And I'm very glad that we've been able to kind of have people who've given us so much expertise, so much support to like allow us to fail, but in the right way, and not to fail too hard where the whole thing implodes. But to kind of give us the kind of support as we've needed to kind of grow through those different stages. There is such a wonderful thing about the diversity of this industry. So if you're looking to kind of start out, you're making your own little kind of foray into what it can be, the key is it's got to be your own. Nothing works if you're just, you've seen a little bit of success somewhere and you're going to try and emulate that. You're never going to be able to put your full heart and soul into something if you don't feel like it's what you care most about. And I think the thing that I always try and encourage either people within the industry, our team members, or entrepreneurs in general, is to kind of really reflect and understand, what is it about this that you're most excited by? What is it that you want to carve out to be your own? And sometimes that takes time to understand because, when you're young, you see certain things and you're like, that's the bit that interests me. And I remember, as an example, going through, art college rotations, and I was so adamant there was going to be certain areas or mediums that were going to be the ones that were for me because, I'd grown up drawing or etching or any of those things and was sure that was going to be the path or that rotation that was going to be the key. And then all of a sudden you meet a great teacher and they just change your perspective on something. And all of a sudden you realize this is actually what excites me. And that's a journey that I encourage people to take time to do. Go through those different rotations, understand what it might be that excites you. You might not think that it could be spreadsheets and all of the data side of things, and you might dismiss that as an idea until you've tried it. And then, you can never control what kind of triggers a passion. So trial a lot of things, take the time to kind of reflect, and then really hone in on the bit that you love and, want to make your everything, and then focus on a way of finding an output to make that your own. That's going to be the way that you can make it succeed because, great ideas only work if you can put everything behind them. It's not enough to have the kind of talent and the excitement. It's got to be able to kind of be backed up with something that you can live and breathe every single day. London, remains the most exciting food and drink city on the planet. It has so much diversity. It has so much that supports those ideas. It's come from our media, it's come from the public. They've got excited each time something has come out. They've not been bothered by whether they knew too much about that certain cuisine or that style of venue. They've supported it because they've been excited by it. But that's something that we can't get flippant about. There needs to remain this sense of support. And that's more crucial now than ever, not because things have got even tighter and, people are, budgets are smaller, people have less kind of flexibility for an everyday sense to be able to kind of go out as much as they used to do. But also in a reality of things, the kind of impact of things like Brexit, the fact that people aren't coming to kind of learn here, they're not coming to study, they're not coming to kind of experience more of the trade. We're not going to get that same diversity of product. And that skill set is kind of really being gutted from the industry. And if we don't, as a community, maintain that excitement around it and continue to push for all of those opportunities to keep it broad, to keep it innovative, then we'll lose that crown. It's not something that we can kind of just rest on our laurels for. We are the most exciting food and drink city in the world because of all of the way that we've built up as a culture. So what's next is, thankfully, a lot of exciting projects. I remain so hopeful and so excited and optimistic about the fact that we always have a few different plates spinning and projects in the pipeline. Of course, we have new things going on in all of the bars, but it's also a really great opportunity to get back out into the world. We have some incredible kind of travel and collaborations coming up. And, I think as teams, we're hitting all the corners of the world right now, which is really, really exciting for us to be able to not only talk about what excites us about what we're doing, what's happening in the trade, but also to learn. try new ingredients, trial new ways of working, and obviously kind of gain different bits of insight from people we get to meet in different parts of different communities. But it's also, we're going into our second decade. We're looking at ways in which we can continue to build and grow. And a major part of what we've always wanted to do within the food and drink world is recruit more people to the idea of it. How do we find ways to encourage people from a wider set of backgrounds to be able to kind of participate in the industry, but also ways in which we can kind of excite a wider group of people? How do we get people outside of the usual cocktail set being able to come and enjoy some of these products, or ways of enjoying different spirits, products, cocktails, mixed drinks, whatever it might be? And so some of the work that we're doing to be able to educate and engage those different kind of sets of communities, be it through different parts of media, different ways of bringing it to life, is some of the most exciting projects I think that we've had on for a while. So later this year, hopefully there'll be some very fun things dropping that start to explore ways in which we can, I suppose, communicate to people in a better way. Oh, I don't think I've ever got tired of being in this industry, and I think that comes from both a love and a curiosity around it, kind of being excited to be able to see what's new, and kind of looking very wide to see what's happening within the world of food and drink. But it's really the people. That's what makes this industry so interesting, is all of the characters that are inherent into it. Of course, super proud of our teams, and I'm going to be very brazen and say we have the best teams in the world. But it's also all the people who are involved. Each time I travel back to a distillery, you go meet somebody who's making something new, the care and the excitement and the passion that they have is infectious. You do this industry not because you're going to make money out of it, because you're not, but you are going to, be able to reflect something that is really honest and like very much reflective of what you care about as an observation of the world. And as you go through and you meet all those people involved, you can't help but feel kind of inspired by that. It's something that I would encourage, even if you're not that interested in food and drink, go visit a producer, go see how something is made, and there's no way you can't come away from it and feel like I've just experienced magic. There's no other way of putting it. And people are very welcoming, they're very caring, they're excited to be able to showcase what they do. So I remain eternally excited by that, and I don't think that will ever change. But I think it's something I'm very excited to open up to a wider group of people and encourage them to experience firsthand too.